Hey everyone, welcome to Lorecraft, where we deconstruct stories, explore creative perspectives, and dive into the magic of storytelling across books, movies, and games. I'm your co host, Ava Doe, a Gothic Romantasy author for the new adult audience.
And I'm your co-host Donnie, storyteller, designer, and creator of all things sci-fi fantasy powered by coffee. This is our lore episode on her project Violent Delights. Ava, introduce yourself.
I did not start with this craft, but when I was younger, I thought that I was going to be a writer one day. I actually thought I was going to go into journalism, and then I think life took over in a different way. I didn't end up going down that path, but I've always wanted to stay in the creative realm in some way. So my day-to-day job is not in writing, but it is in the entertainment field. And so I think I was inspired just hearing about people continuing their writing journey, and I wondered what would have happened if I had continued to be a writer. And I was like, what am I talking about? I'm still alive right now. I can there's nothing stopping me from trying it out. So that's basically what happened. A year and a half ago, I committed to doing writing, and actually at the time of recording right now, we're gonna be on the 1 year anniversary of I started writing consistently, every day. I came back to the page, and it's just so gratifying because when you find something that fills your cup, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Day in, day out, it's continuing to fill your cup. That's something special right there. And I think writing has been that for me. So still really new on my writing journey, but I can feel that this is something that is going to be with me for a really long time. It really helps me express what's going on in my own brain, process what's going on with myself, and I feel oddly enough, understand the human condition better by forcing myself to understand me, because I'm having to come up with characters out of my own brain, and it's they have their own human afflictions, and that's what we want to read about,
Oh, 1,000%. It's interesting. Well, first of all, congrats to us being close to the 1 year anniversary of your writing journey.
Dude,
with
the
Lorecraft podcast coming out, and with us doing your first lore episode. But it's interesting what kind of superpowers you start to develop and that emerge when you become a writer, because then you start paying attention to small things that necessarily weren't in your orbit. Like you said, the human condition. You start studying people more because, if you're any writer, author worth their salt, they want to give characters as much likeness as possible. So you start paying attention to how people do things, and what triggers them and what are motivations. You start. Obviously, you're gonna hear, if you're fans of the podcast, you're gonna hear this series brought up all the time. It's like Neo from the Matrix. He can see the code. You start looking at life from that sort of lens, and everything. So yeah. Now, what is Violent Delights, Violent Ends as the title? Let's hop into that and kind of discuss it.
It's the working title for the novel that I'm working on, which is actually I scrapped 2 or 3 stories before I ended up on Violent Delights, Violent Ends, and I feel it was coming into its own after I continued to write about it, and I was able to make multiple revisions to it, and it still held water, and I was still excited to come back to it every day. Mm-hmm. I think that some of the love of storytelling was also inspired by playing Dungeons and Dragons for the first time, and then coming back to it again, and kind of just having that immersive world building that's happening in front of you, but also role playing and acting out a character as you were going. And so I feel Violent Delights, Violent Ends is something therapeutic for me to write. I think there's some personal elements in there, but then there's obviously a lot that is not my reality, right? So yeah. I felt it was blending that fantastical love of setting that I have for something like a D&D, and also speaking to something that I wish I had maybe 10 years ago to read and to think about problems a little bit differently than to kind of help me process what was going on in my own life. Does that make some sense?
Yeah.
I think like when we were doing your lore episode, your theme was on the topic of identity, but we don't tend to go at it as like directly as that. You know what I mean? Like I feel like the audience benefits from when we're not preachy and more of like we're solving a problem through this like fictional means.
Exactly.
And like subconsciously triggering people to think about it a little bit differently. So I would say that this is a book that was inspired for my younger self and what she was going through back then. And I'm hoping that someone who picks up like Violent Delights, Violent Ends also feels that when they read it, if they're going through that similar life situation.
Oh yeah, 1000%. And I think for myself, I'll look at story and storytelling, going to your point of like being preachy, is like I feel like the best stories and the best narratives, they ask really good questions. Like they don't give you the answer, they give you the best question, and then you figure it out, and then that's how you come into the story. You just love it.
They like they put the debate in your head, right? Like love those moral quandaries. And to go a little bit further, it is a kind of like very pointed title, like Violent Delights, Violent Ends. I think something that is going to be really apparent in most of the writing that I'm going to do, or like the theme that I keep on coming back to, is definitely like the concept of like revenge and angst and like getting people their just desserts kind of thing.
Wholesale stuff.
So yeah, I think that's why I describe it as like a Gothic romantasy, or maybe like a Gothic fantasy with romantic elements. Because I do want it to be kind of like this like gritty world with kind of characters that would survive in that, but also some levity characters as well.
Okay. Now, how did you arrive at the concept for this narrative?
I love cat and mouse kind of dynamics, heist dynamics, red team, blue team, which if you're not familiar with, in like more technical industries nowadays, red team, blue team would be like you've got a blue team that defends against attacks. Let's say in like a hacker mentality, like you're defending against like insecurities from outside forces. Red team, though, is also within your organization, within your company. They're your teammates, but they are trying to show you the insecurities before actual insecurities show up, right? So it's a push and pull dynamic. And so I think that a lot of the themes in Violent Delights, Violent Ends, and a lot of these like plots and subplots are complementing that cat mouse dynamic. Like we're on the same side, but in order to be like the strongest version of ourselves, like we have to actively go and find those exploits. And it's almost that kind of like almost like enemies to lovers, but almost like begrudging like partners to lovers kind of trope, where like you're fucking everything up for me, but I know you're doing your job, right?
Yeah.
And as we start to talk a little bit more about it, I think we're going to see it in the other subplots. So the red team, blue team dynamic, that would be the like the spy master versus captain of the royal guard aspect of the book. That's like one main storyline between the main characters. And then for anyone who likes darker tropes, like the serial killer
Dexter
series
this is
like
what
Dexter,
it must feel like to walk in full
that's another thing where those same main characters are also participating in a subplot one knows about, the other one doesn't, where they're hunting down the serial killer, right? One of the main characters is actually the serial killer, and the other one is trying to go and find them. So it's this delicious kind of like push and pull of like, how am I helping you? What am I obfuscating from you? And kind of like multiple facets of that relationship.
Yeah, I haven't seen Dexter yet. I'm stuck between wanting to watch the show and read the book first. Another favorite TV show of mine, Billions. Paul Giamatti's character, Chuck Rhodes, he's a federal prosecutor. He brings up Darker German Dexter in the show about how Dexter relies on his father Specifically in the book. I don't know if that same dynamic persists in the
It
show.
is in the yeah.
So his father's like a guide and mentor. So I'm very interested to see that. And then I know the meme. I didn't know where the meme originated from, but it's the black cop guy who suspects Dexter and whatnot. Yeah. So I've been interested to see it more now that I know that meme comes from that character, which I think is funny. Of like, oh, I know you're the bad guy, but everyone else loves you, but I know who you really are.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So it's less of like a whodunit kind of mystery. Like the audience is in the know about what's happening, but we're taking them along to see like how we avoid getting found out the entire time, right? Like how we get to draw out this like almost heist within a heist, like a Russian nesting doll of like cleverness put into that for its format of like this novel.
And one last thing, and then I'll go to the next question. I think that's something that Breaking Bad does so well, is that because, and this is something I've learned through other storytelling techniques, but the way the characters are positioned at the start of the story gives that natural dynamic tension, so that you don't have to build up to it. It's just there. So it's like you have a guy who has cancer, makes meth, is a genius, right next to his DEA brother-in-law. And so you're like, oh man, what's going to happen here? And so I don't know how Dexter sets up the character positions at the beginning of the story, but I feel like the best story is like if you can craft that tension at the beginning and just, like you said, make it apparent to the reader. You don't have to like guess and build it up. It just means like it immediately will pull you in to be like, whoa, like how's this going to play out? Now, what is Gothic Romantasy, and what are some of the tropes of the genre or subgenre, or however it's classified? Like, how would you define that for an audience who's unfamiliar? I'm somewhat tangentially familiar, but fill us in on what that is, please.
Yeah, I'm gonna do my best, and I think like I'm starting to identify Violent Delights, Violent Ends as a Gothic Romantasy, but it didn't start out that way, right? I think as I was starting to understand the genres a little bit more, they just seem to identify a little bit better. So I would say like the Gothic fiction side of this is mostly characterized by like dark, mysterious, sometimes supernatural kind of atmospheres. They will tend to touch like decay, madness, death, like haunting kind of things, maybe like eerie backdrops. And so I feel like it's like an atmosphere of like doom and kind of brooding. Things are going to be like darker in elements, darker in look, maybe. I feel like it's almost like the cut of seeing like a stop action like a Tim Burton would make versus any other stop action like genre that someone else is making, or claymation, if you will. So that's how I would define the Gothic aspect of it. I'm very much in love with like with Gothic architecture and like castles and stuff like that. And anytime I'm playing D&D, I'm always thinking that that's some sort of setting that would fit well with this book. The environment that I envision Violent Delights, Violent Ends to be in is more like The Witcher. We're not seeing necessarily like super beautiful vistas all the time. I feel like we're seeing like the doom and gloom of like everyday life and going from town to town and like seeing the decay and seeing the rot, but then also seeing life coexist with it. So I think it's more of that, which is why I would categorize it a bit into Gothic.
Okay.
And then Romantasy, it's just like a hybrid between romantic and fantasy. And this is something that I'm still playing with. I think that Violent Delights, Violent Ends does have romantic elements in it. And as I'm starting to craft it, I'm starting to think that maybe it's more like a fantasy with romantic elements. Romantasy is truly just a blend where like romance and fantasy are both central to the theme. They tend to have like magical worlds, high stakes adventures, and probably like a strong romantic arc that develops alongside the main plot. I think that all still fits for Violent Delights, Violent Ends, but I will say there is like a pretty good amount of adventure and like high stakes situations, life or death, or like violence in some sense within the book. I would say that's like a majority versus the romance aspect of it, but it is pretty crucial between the main two characters.
Okay, so we got Junji Ito meets that one female
Kinda,
author,
yeah.
the one series that starts with a T, but that shall not be named at this time.
I got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't shy away from that stuff. I feel like maybe we'll talk about themes later, but I feel like something that was really strong when I was working on the concept of this narrative is like the idea of like good for her. I think like the concept of good for her is going to keep on coming up. And if you're anyone who holds a grudge like I do, sometimes you really want to like twist that knife in, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And so I don't hesitate in letting us like twist the knife further as like a reader and as like a main character that we're inhabiting. I like it.
Okay. I feel like with my writing style and the things that I like, I'm more of like the Miyazaki. Like I give beautiful stuff, but it's like dark on the inside. And Junji Ito's like dark on the outside, but beautiful like on the inside. You know, like the cat ears. It's like the funniest like juxtaposition between like those two creators. And I feel like we might make some of that same and whatnot. Because like, no, make it bright, make it beautiful. There's dark stuff, but it's like inside and whatnot. So it's really funny. Now, what is it? And maybe you answered this in your previous response, but like, what is it that appeals to you about the genre or those genres? That, you know, is it an emotion? Is it specifically the visuals? Like, can you touch on that like a little bit?
I think it's a combination of both. I feel like the themes that I'm picking up on, like good for her, revenge, you know, comeuppance and getting people their just desserts, so on and so forth, is naturally like just like a darker train of thought. Like we can be ambitious and hardworking people, but at the end of the day, we could still want to like be the best because it's going to like give us a leg up on somebody, or we can't get out of our heads the way that we were wronged previously, and we would give anything to like redo it or to like give it back to that person, or you know, serve them their medicine, right? So I think like the themes themselves tend to be a little bit more angsty, a little bit more dark. So I think like leaning into the Gothic just makes a lot of sense. And I tend to just like that visual identity of like less of not everything is the way it seems, like a Willy Wonka kind of happiness, more like what you see is what you get. We're putting you into a world and realm of clear danger. Like it's very obvious that you are not like the strongest predator here. I want it to be kind of apparent in that way. And I think that a lot of the book is about like deception, manipulation, being 10 steps ahead, outthinking one another. So yeah, it's almost like, I don't know why this just reminded me of it right now, but if anyone's watched like Queen's Gambit on Netflix, I think there's like still beautiful visuals that are going on, but underneath that, and it's not even like super beautiful where it's like blowing you out of the water. It's clearly kind of like this gritty kind of environment that she's working through greatness though. Okay. So yeah.
Okay. Now that you've sort of defined that, what do you feel are some of the tropes, and then what do you feel like you're bringing that's new to the genre? Do you feel like you're innovating on like a certain, you know, like twist or something in the conventions, without any spoilers if you feel like, you know, you don't want to give the game away too early? For example, you know, Harry Potter, you know, it took the age-old concept of wizards and witches, you know, the Tolkien stuff. It's like, but it put it in them in high school. So that's why I think I've studied J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter. So like, I think that's one of the biggest things that made it so successful, is that everyone can relate to high school, and it's a shonen just done in a different way because they're in high school as wizards and witches. So what do you feel like that's maybe different in your narrative story that you're adding to like the collective whole of the genre or the medium?
I don't know if I'm going to be reinventing the wheel super crazily. I think that there's some tropes that we know and love. Like we love the Hunger Games because there's trials in it, right? There's a certain expectation for what those trials are going to look like and feel like that we want to be met. I think for Violent Delights, Violent Ends, I wanted her to struggle pretty hard with her mental well-being along this track. I put a pretty heavy madness arc into it that is related to some of the magic system, but also the kind of like emotional toil that she's going through. I also purposefully try to make it that she's not great at everything, that she has like a very clear vice that is holding her back or that causes more morally gray actions to come through. And I want her to struggle. I want her to kind of fucking suck at some things, and I want her to have a chance to kind of be really upset and really raw with everything that's happening around her. I think maybe something that I'm bringing that will be a little bit different is I do explore like the concept of sexual abuse in there a little bit lightly, but I also don't want to shy away from it. I think it's important to acknowledge that these things happen, unfortunately, but I think it goes back to like I was writing this for like 10 years ago, me, and like the really like what I wish I could have done instead, or like the way that I wish I could have had like more control in my life, for example. So I think that potentially I'm going to be pushing the Gothic side of it in terms of like what we talk about and blending it with something that's a little bit more popular right now, like the Romantasy trope. So I really want to be able to like marry those two together and not make it so off-putting for a general audience, but also like let it exist in the world because these are real problems today.
Oh, for sure. Now, you mentioned her. Let's get into characters. Can you explain who the main characters are? Who's the cast? Like, what do you love about them? Like, let's just dive in. We have the two, air quotes lovers, main characters. But yeah, kind of let's roll into that space.
Yeah. So the main character's name is Althea. Althea is a blacksmith or weaponsmith set in this kind of like medieval fantasy Witcher style kind of environment. What is special about her and her family line is that the magic system of this novel, like one of them, is related to her family line, around the idea of like soul-bound weapons. And I think it's like fairly straightforward. It's like a soul-bound weapon is almost like in tune with you, like an extension of your body. It can understand what your intent is, what your fears are, what you want to do next, and really be fluid with you. So what a fantastic partner to have with you in a fight, right? But all like there has to be downside to magic such as this. To have such a highly coveted weapon like this, what kind of downside would be appropriate? I came up with the idea of like hellbinding. So hellbinding would happen if a soulbound weapon was basically corrupted by maybe taking a life, for instance. Hellbound weapons are equally strong, maybe stronger, but their source of power is different. Whereas a soulbound weapon forged by like Althea or anyone in her family would, make you a really good bond with that weapon, almost like your partner in crime. And the more that you use them, the more it like levels up in a way with its attunement to you. A hellbound weapon is just there for like the lust of power and the lust of blood, right? So once you convert it, it's seeking something else, and you could still build it up, but at what cost? It's usually like at the most extreme versions of it. And so that gets her into hot water pretty early on. Over time, they've in this magical world, they've determined that a skill set such as this, the ability to make these kinds of weapons, is banned, right? Like we've seen more negative consequences than we have seen good. So you should not make these anymore. Do not make them. So that's a little bit of friction right there, because that's her livelihood as well. And then we're going to bring in the male main character, Bastion, who is kind of like her foil throughout the book. He versus her. He is born in the lap of luxury. He is from like a noble house. He has like a military background. He works and lives in the castle as part of the royal court, and he is at the height of his career as like the captain of the royal guard. So just like this elite squadron of soldiers and protectors of the kingdom, like the cream of the crop, if you will. And his ethos is really strong and true of like what is right, what is wrong. He is like a quintessential type 1 in the Enneagram space, which I'll go over one day in the future, I'm sure. And Althea operates as more of like a type 8, who I would categorize as like someone who wants to trailblaze their own path. They don't want to be told what to do. Yeah, there we go. Donnie is a
self-identified type 8.
Type 8. And so they're marching to the beat of their own drums. What they're like, they want control over their own destiny, right? And so Althea is very much like so independent, it's hurting her to that point. And then our antagonist, if you will, in this novel is introduced as King Thane. King Thane is the king of Rosemark, which is the main kingdom in the book, and by his decree, the weapons are banned. But he commissions Althea for one last one, and then things go awry where he basically like abuses her and then puts her in the ground, which is obviously terrible. And the story should end there, but I introduce like a divinity aspect of this where she gets a second chance at revenge and at accomplishing her mission of finding her missing sister. At the beginning of the story, Maeve, her older sister, is missing after taking on a high-profile commission at the castle. No one is really answering questions about it, where she's gone, and so she's trying to support herself as now like a single person in the household, the only person bringing money in and keeping a roof over her head, trying to find her sister at the same time, and she's really at her wit's end. So whether she's basically making illicit contraband weapons on the side because they are like the highest paying commissions. The king commissions one from her under his decree, like, oh, I'll allow you to make one more, and things go wrong from there. So basically around these like 3 to 4 characters, like all roads lead to the castle, right? So she needs to go and find a way to get close to these perpetrators and get her old life back, but also save her sister at the same time. And they're all like kind of coalescing there.
Okay. Now, a few things. I love everything you just said there. When you thought about all roads lead to the castle, I thought of like Bowser's castle from like, yeah. I can imagine, you know, like the Disney movies when it shows like the castle in the middle, but instead of like this pretty Cinderella-esque, it's just like this dark Gothic thing, and you kind of go through the front gate.
It's definitely like a lot of spires, a lot of like really tall windows, spikes everywhere. It's not spikes. I know there's like a better word for it, but yeah.
Tower. Now, going back to a few things here, I want to canvas before we get further into some other creative questions and creative processes. Which also, by the way, if you're listening to this episode, please smash, hip check, body slam that like button. You know,
body slam it.
Would appreciate it if you like. It's for the kids. Like, do it for the kids. Do it for Althea so she can get her sister back.
Oh yeah, thank you.
But it's for, so putting that little intermission there, but. I have a question. So with these hellbound weapons, do they eventually like take on a life of their own? Is that sort of why they're banned? That would be interesting. I don't know if you thought of that, or is that sort of the danger behind using these hellbound weapons? That they just like they start tripping out, become like self-sentient, and like killing everyone.
I haven't gotten that far yet, but I will say that they're like the negative effects of this is almost like an addicting one, right? Like after you experience such power, like where are you going to get your next hit? And if you've already converted your weapon into something where you need an outside source to feed that, where it's not just like, oh, you know, the bond between me and my dog, as long as I keep on feeding them and playing with them and having an amazing time with my dog, we're always going to be like getting closer as best friends. That is more like soul binding. Hell binding is now like, well, now my source of power and the one that you've been enjoying, and this like huge power increase that you got from committing like a heinous crime. If you want more of that, you're gonna have to keep on feeding this bloodlust, if you will, right? So I think there's like a physicality to it and a connection that you have with the weapon that just makes you feel a little jittery, right? Like in the story, Althea comes back with a hellbound weapon in hand. not one of her own creation, but she's reborn with a hellbound weapon in hand, and the weapon is attracted to power sources, and it so happens that a lot of really good power sources tend to be people that are really strong. And throughout the book, she's finding other evidences of previously made soulbound weapons gone wrong, right? Like she's seeing the effects of what happened when people misused the weapons that her families from previous generations have, right? Like she's able to find really old weapons and blades that like are now hellbound and incredibly strong, attached to owners that are incredibly strong. And of course, if your weapon is just like a honing beacon for like where, like almost like a metal detector of like, oh, right here is like there's a coin right here, you can imagine like a bigger metal object in the ground is going to have a louder ping than that coin, right? So with her hellbound weapon, she can also detect that there's like a crazy power source nearby. It just so happens to be rapists, murderers, serial killers, like the scum of the scum in the kingdom. And so she wasn't able to come back without just like any repercussion. Like I was saying, all magic has repercussions. The god that she brokered a pact with, she's like, yeah, I'll let you come back. I'll give you some more time on this earth so you can go and complete the task that you want to, and go get your life back or your soul back if you commit sacrifices for me, right? And so there's another moral quandary where Althea is not a killer by trade. She's just a bladesmith, right? She's not a fighter either. Where she's like, if I'm really gonna go and try to like get Maeve out of this conundrum, if I'm gonna go and try to like get my revenge on the king and get my life back, my soul back, I kind of need to play ball, right? Yeah. I can only kite this for so long, and if I really have to kill someone, who would I kill? And this is where that kind of like Dexter aspect comes in, where she decides to start listening to her hellbound blade of like who to target and who to leave alone. And so that's when she ends up going for like the more heinous people that she can go and find.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds, when you talked about there being like huge energy sources that you can kind of detect with the hellbound weapons, it reminds me a little bit of Kingdom Hearts, like Birth by Sleep, and then 3, like some of that backstory. I won't spoil because I haven't even beaten Kingdom Hearts 3, but all these keyblades, like the good keyblades ended up becoming so powerful it caused like a war, and you see like this huge discarded field of all these like former generations of keyblade wielders because they just things got out of control. So it's very interesting on that front that I was like, oh, it's pretty unique concept. And it also reminds me, I don't know if this is intentional or not, but it reminds me a little bit of what's the 2 series? It's Death Note, and then I think it's Inushiki. It's I think it's Inushiki Last Stand or something like that. I might be mispronouncing it, but it's a series where basically like this old guy gets like hit by this like extraterrestrial comet or something, and it turns him into like an android. And this other kid, he gets hit by the same android, and like one just goes like a crazy killing spree, but like the old guy ends up like saving him. So it's an interesting dynamic between like the power. I'll post it here so you all can see. And then, I think it's called Inushiki Last Stand, but it's an interesting like dynamic between doing bad to do good kind of thing.
I see it now. Inuyashiki Last Hero, I think.
Yeah, Last Hero, exactly. And whatnot. Okay, so moving on. Any advice for newbie writers before we kind of get more into the techno-creative process? Do you have any advice so far between this 1 year sort of anniversary that you've kind of come into since starting to now, that you feel like, if you're a writer looking to work on a story, like what advice would you sort of give now?
Well, from a newbie writer to another newbie writer, and I'm talking to the audience of any newbie writers out there, because I still feel like I'm still in my infancy, but I think something that has been strong for me that I've been working through for this last year is, as someone who's like a pretty hardcore type 3 Enneagram, who derives value, or like I feel like I'm valuable when I deliver good work or when I achieve something, so to speak. I think that with writing, it is such a solo endeavor at first. Like it's you and the page, right? I don't have a team with me. And I think that's something that we talked about in your episode. Like some of the challenges that you had was finding an artist that could speak your creative language. And I think I'm at a point right now with my writing medium where I haven't yet built that tribe around me. So it's still me and the page itself. I don't have an editor. I don't have like beta readers yet or anything like that to make this more collaborative. And in that situation, I can get really in my head about what delivery looks like, so to speak. And I would have a hard time balancing like I am brushing up on creative writing as an exercise versus I am doing actual writing versus I am reading a book that I admire that is inspirational for Violent Delights, Violent Ends. I'm consuming media that's related to it. I'm watching YouTube videos about writing craft or anything like that. I found that it's really easy to feel like you're failing at boiling the ocean, but we were never meant to boil the ocean to begin with, right? And so I think a lesson that I've taken to heart over this last year is every single day I come in and I do something related to writing, and I try not to be so hard on myself that like because I didn't also do 6 hours of actual writing today and because I spent most of my time reading a book about creative writing that it was all a wash, right? I think keeping that passion true for yourself and coming in every day to do something with the craft is most important, and giving yourself that kind of flexibility without hiding from it, right? I think it's a delicate balance. Like going too hard in one direction where you're spending 18 hours a day, like 6 hours of writing, 2 hours of reading, and whatever else, you're gonna hurt yourself. But at the same time, if you know that you're in a chapter and you're just tweaking it to be perfect for some reason, like it's just chapter 1 on your first draft ever, and for some reason for the last 5 months I've never moved past chapter 1 because I keep on rewriting for like the tense, the POV, making the words perfect, like that's also not a good use of your time, right? So I think it's that balance of like, let's keep moving, but also let's not juke ourselves of doing actual writing just by becoming perfectionists.
Yeah, so to summarize, so you're saying it's two parts. Is one part of make sure you're doing an action that's moving the needle forward. If it's not writing, it's studying the craft, it's reading or watching something to gain inspiration, it's getting out of your head, it's having conversations, it's walking, whatever it is, to kind of like push the needle forward in that creative direction for your creative writing journey. And then the other side of it is also don't let those things distract you from getting the actual work done, which is the writing. It's like, because all that stuff is great, but at the end of the day, if you aren't writing, if you don't put gas in the tank, the car isn't going to go anywhere. You can talk to the cashier, you can put it in the jerry can, you can do whatever.
But you're still stuck at the gas station.
He's like
exactly.
So moving on to some fun stuff here. So who are some of your creative inspirations? Who are some of your creative inspirations, whether it's narrative-wise, story, world and characters,
I'm so happy to
any
talk
shows,
about this.
video games, music? What kind of media kind of like enriches you? Like, what was there a particular book or book series or author that inspired the genesis of Violent Delights, not venereal disease?
The answer is yes, all of the above. I have a gaming background, and so I definitely played some role-playing games where I was like, this just hits so strong because I am the character, right? And then there's also movies that I've loved growing up where I'm like, wow, what would it be like to adapt this into like a book without losing the magic of what the what the trope is, right? So I would say some of my inspirations here are for the world. I said The Witcher. I think like in terms of that fantasy as well, we're gonna have like monsters, we're gonna have some semblance of magic, not super high magic, and set in kind of like a darker, gritty, overcast, rainy setting, like The Witcher from either the game or from the Netflix adaptation as well. There's also a game that I also really liked, Senua's Saga, Hellblade. I think you recommended it to me actually. Because the madness arc is just so good. I really respect the amount of time and effort they put into researching that, because this is reality for some people, right? Like it is this constant talking, it's this constant distraction, And I thought that I was my worst enemy, but I really think that Senua's Saga is such an exemplary showcase of that affliction. And so I wanted to introduce a little bit of that into the book. Some of what I cover is around PTSD, and so I think without it being as overt as what's happening in Senua's Saga, where there's literally a trio of voices that are talking to the main character at any time, and they have their own agendas. They could be rooting her on at a given time, and in the next second they could be like, I think she's gonna fuck it up. I think she's gonna die right here. Really tearing down the main character's like confidence and injecting their own will into there. I also wanted to kind of have that, but in a lighter sense. When it comes to PTSD, it's a lot of intrusive thoughts that are going on, so not necessarily the voices, but they are there, and you're always psyching yourself out, especially after you get triggered by something or a traumatic event happens. It's kind of just looming there, you can't really turn it off, and so they're just living rent free in your head. And I would say Dexter, the serial killer show, was a big inspiration. I like the idea of like a morally gray main character that is kind of exacting their revenge on the world and still trying to follow like a world order that doesn't topple everything into chaos, right? Like Dexter has this sense that he always needs to kill. Okay, if you're gonna kill somebody, why don't you target like the worst of the worst, right? Althea needs to kill in order to stay on the planet Earth. Who is she going to target if she must do it? I would also say the Arcane series. Like, I haven't watched all of it, but I really do like the madness arc that they put for Jinx. I think it's like very poetic. It's very well done in a visual medium, and she's also grappling with a lot of insecurities and voices in her head and reliving traumatic situations and seeing people that she once loved, kind of thing. So I injected that as well.
Okay, nice.
Now, how can I forget the whole heist element? We all love heist movies, right? So like Ocean's in there for sure. Ocean's has a lot of levity and a lot of funniness and breadth to it. I think I go a little bit darker, but I don't want to go full on Italian Job. Like Italian Job, I think we might have talked about in our Ocean's episode. Italian Job is more like a heist with like a violent end potentially, right? I think I try to strike the balance of Ocean's wittiness. There is a stake to it, but no one's dying on screen, right? Like we know they're not going to be bodily harm, but they will suffer in some way, in funny ways.
Yeah, if you haven't checked it out, check out our Ocean's teardown of all three Ocean's movies, because the trilogy is literally perfection. What are some of your writing and creative rituals, and what is your writing process? Do you have one? Are you still, tinkering with it as you go along? I know for me, it's always been, I'm constantly innovating, figuring out what's working for me and what isn't, and trying new tools. Like, do you have like a specific ritual? Do you make tea beforehand? Do you make coffee just to smell it? Which I do to get me in the olfactory, senses going. What is it for you? Is it loud music, no music? What's some of that?
Yeah. It's a good question. I think that my writing ritual has basically evolved into the following. It's usually a nighttime routine for me. I have dogs. I love them. I try to give them as much time in my day as possible until they get really tired at night, which is when all they want to do is sleep. Perfect, right? So they go ahead and take their they start falling asleep. And then I start writing around nighttime, like 10 or 11 or so, and I'll go for like a couple hours of just like continuous. I'm like typing as much as I can and not trying to be as specific about how perfect or imperfect it is. I just want to get ideas out there. And during the day, what I love about writing so much is I'm such a big time daydreamer. Like most of my waking time is spent in this like random fictional like situation or scenarios that are like they're just happening, right? And it's just been the biggest pleasure of my life so far to be able to do writing and get the idea out on paper and then have a new daydream. So during the daytime, my mind is constantly going. It's like cooking up new ideas and thinking about like what I just wrote, or like scenes that don't even exist yet. And that's how sometimes they end up as like chapters or scenes in my book, even if they're like sporadic for the future. It's because I just spent that day allowing for my brain to kind of wander and like come up with something that I haven't thought about before. And something else that kind of helps me with the writing is finding some theme music. So in one of the games that I'm playing, there's some boss music that is just so amazing. It's like a violin instrumental that feels like really kind of Renaissance and like a masterpiece that would have been amazing back then. Like think like Vivaldi, like Winters kind of song, right? Like that kind of intensity, but from a game from modern day. I will just play that shit on.
Do you know the name of the song and the what game it's from?
Let me see if
we
can
link it in the show notes. But as a person who I will link it in the show notes. But it's just such a beautiful piece of music. I will link it over there so that you guys can find it later, because I don't remember the name off the top of my head. But the moment you hear it, it's like whoa, instant. The worst feeling for me in the world as a human being, one of the worst, is like hearing a song that I don't know the name of, but it's just like I can hear the drums, I can hear the strings or whatever, and I'm like, what is this song? And like Shazam isn't capturing it before it goes away. So the ether, there's like a good thought that like once it's gone, it's gone. It's like you're not getting that genie back in the bottle. So better have your Shazam there or anything else to record that. So I have that music playing basically on a repeat. Okay. No, also when you were speaking to being a daydreamer, which I didn't realize, and I guess since we're both writers, we're living in these imaginary worlds. It brought to mind the movie Sucker Punch. I don't know if you've seen it, but it combines it's like the imaginary dream world to escape from your reality. And also has theme music to like every scene and every character. Yeah. It's like a wonderful movie. I think it's also.
I love Sucker Punch.
Yeah, Sucker Punch is so good. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your flow.
No. That it's 100% like that. And then I think the last thing that's kind of funny for me. Okay, to be fair, it is legal where I am, but weed.
Lorecraft podcast does not endorse illegal substances consumed. Check with your local. Yeah.
It's just me, or maybe other people as well. But I will say, as someone like when I get high, I get more introspective, I get more immersed than ever before. I don't know if anyone else in our audience feels the same way, but I have a sense of immersion that is a little bit troubling. I can't read or watch something without feeling like I am the main character, where it really is happening. So I have to be kind of careful with the media that I consume, unless I'm prepared for that to flavor the rest of my day. It's to that level of immersion. So now imagine if I'm high, I literally am the main character. And sometimes when I'm reading a book, that's when I can tell I'm really into a book, or I can identify the moment that I was thrown out of my immersion. I'll like be reading something like, did I really just do that? No, I wouldn't do that kind of feeling. Sometimes I'll write when I'm high, and that's when it really becomes kind of like raw and like straight from the heart. Like what am I doing, what am I saying, what am I feeling in that moment, because I'm embodying Althea so hard that it feels like on another kind of flow, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that's so funny, like your level of immersion. I have a similar kind of thing where if I like or watch something that I'm into, my life will start to reflect that. I won't necessarily the immersion will have.
You're gonna bring up Mr. Robot today?
Yeah, that and chart, like my life parallels so many things. It's why I try to like limit what I really get into, because then things like scenarios will actually happen that will line up with what I've seen. I'm like, it's happened with Uncharted, it's happened with the Uncharted the video games. The Billions TV show, obviously Mr. Robots, even Pirates of the Caribbean. I think that's probably where it started, between Oceans and Pirates of the Caribbean, and probably Prison Break back on the day, somewhere around there. That's when it started to happen. But very much I feel where you're coming from. Now, quick plug here for the audience. I also take supplements for focused. So I don't do gummies or you get high.
Hit us up, sponsors.
Yeah. But yeah, here's no sponsor. But yeah, but I have noticed that, and maybe this can roll into the next question about any preferred tools or techniques. But I've noticed that obviously coffee, quintessential for almost any writer, coffee or tea, even kombucha. But I've tried using focus supplements, and that really helps me like get dialed into the narrative. Like I usually drink coffee to help stimulate the ideas, and then I drink tea to like really focus and like laser in on one specific. Maybe I'm doing just straight dialogue. Well, sometimes I need tea to like zoom in and focus. So yeah, I relate to your technique. Now that we're done with our commercial break sponsors, we don't have any sponsors yet. Yeah, do you have any preferred tools or techniques? And when I say tools or techniques, I mean like software, say for instance like Scrivener, or just a simple Google Doc, or if you hate yourself, Microsoft Word. I don't know why anyone uses Microsoft Word anymore. Only webmasters, still use that. They don't even call that term anymore. Do you have anything in particular?
Yeah, I found that Scrivener is my go-to nowadays. Like I tried their free trial for a little while, and I was like, if I can commit to writing every single day in Scrivener, and it's not deflecting me, and I'm not feeling like I'm pulling teeth just trying to work with the software, and I can continue writing, then I will go ahead and buy the license. So, and that's basically what happened. I did their trial, I wrote every single day, and it was pretty easy for me to organize my thoughts and kind of like build things out. And I am a really big fan of doing rewrites. Again, I am like an amateur novelist, and I am still learning about the craft and what to do, but I'm someone who loves brute force, just like getting work done. Like I am not someone who's gonna take like draft one and be like, okay, well, I'm gonna just switch up some words here and there. I was like, nah, fuck that shit. I'm just gonna make another one. I started like an entirely new document. I would have them side by side and basically like redo the entire file tree, like redo every single chapter. And it really made me critically think about what I liked about it, what I wanted to achieve, and whether it was going to actually solve it or not. The other thing that I picked up recently, and I didn't know that it was going to be useful for me or not, but I also picked up Grammarly. I'm taking some coursework right now where they highly recommend Grammarly, and I was like, okay, let me just see what it's about, right? What could it be more than like a jazzed up Clippy or like a jazzed up spell check in Word or any other word processor? But I took it on, and it's been pretty helpful so far. Like I think I have some consistent mistakes grammar wise that I make, but also sometimes in my writing I don't always phrase things as smoothly as I want, right? Like I basically put the idea out on paper, and because Grammarly is basically an on desktop thing that's just happening, it's just like highlighting as it goes, and I can choose to go ahead and make the edit right then and there, or I can just leave it for a later time. But I think that's been a non-intrusive but helpful way for me to phrase what I'm writing just a little bit more cleaned up.
Yeah, that happens to me. There was a quote I read years ago from an author, probably like one of the like Mark Twain or Hemingway or something, and he goes like, when it comes to editing and writing, I spent all morning putting in a period, and I spent all afternoon taking it out. It was like, as a writer, where like you write something and you're literally fixated on like this one verbiage, like what tense should I use, where should this comma go to get that flavor just right, that one particular ingredient, because you feel like your life can't move on from that chaos. And I can see how like a tool like Grammarly can help translate it more
just
clearly.
Just get out of that paralysis.
Yeah, from like your head where you can see it so clearly, but maybe you're having to sculpt it a lot more to get it, refined and everything. What's your favorite aspect of creative writing? Is it doing dialogue, characters, scenes, world building? Like, what's your plot, pacing? What is it that is your favorite aspect so far? And then also, what's your least favorite?
That's a really good one. I'll start with the least favorite. For whatever reason, I'm not really a huge fan of exposition, and I hope like future readers of my work will kind of appreciate that. Don't get me wrong. I think that the books that I really enjoy put in their exposition and settings and context in a way that is non-intrusive. I'm just reading it, and I just know exactly where I am. I know how I'm feeling at the moment, and it's all really complimentary. I think that's like the sign of like a really well-written, well-crafted book. But the ones where I'm like reading a paragraph about what the weather is like, what I really liked about the coursework that I'm taking right now is someone said like there's there's only so many ways that a writer can reinvent the way to say that the sky is blue, right? Like, and so I don't really enjoy exposition and context setting as much, and I think it's because I don't have that muscle super developed yet, until to the point that I'm like such a good writer that can just be like a holistic piece where it's like there is context, there is exposition, and just flowing smoothly with the dialogue and what the character is doing, that just tells you what's happening in a succinct way, right? That doesn't feel like a Lord of the Rings level of exposition, but it's not too short where the reader can't be immersed. I would say that's my least favorite right now. I would say my most favorite, it's changed over time, actually. When I first started, I would say that character building and their personalities and their afflictions and the reasons why they like are the way they are were my favorite. And early on, you're kind of like building a mental image of the character too, like, oh, she's got so and so hair, she's around this height, she wears these kinds of clothes, and then you start getting to dialogue, oh, this is how she would handle this situation. You do that for each of your characters. But then what that evolved into was just like a deeper understanding of the human condition, which I was saying at the top of the hour, of like the human condition and what makes us tick as people, because we do some crazy ass shit. And like having to dig deep and understand, why would Althea commit the things that she's doing? Why would she choose to do XYZ? Why wouldn't she just kind of like live her life without trying to get any revenge at all? Getting a second chance at life, maybe that's good enough. Why would she put herself through any of the dangers that she's about to face, right? Is her love for her sister really that strong? Like, what does that feel like? It forced me, as someone who has a limited experience in life, to really like grapple with that fictional life experience and understand myself better as to like what makes people tick. Well, I'll start with myself as a subject matter, right? Like, what makes me tick? What are like the darker sides and the lighter sides of my own personality, and what would that feel like if I was a type 8, a type 1, a type 3, or any other combination, right? Like, how do I hide from pain? How do I avoid it? How do I reach the point of darkness where it's like, okay, this pain is greater than the pain I had previously and it's time to move? All those things became just like the most fun of writing overall. It's almost like a form of self-therapy, in my opinion, because I'm forced to like process things about myself that I can't hide from, and I think it's just been so gratifying.
Yeah, the leap to the behavioral psychology aspect of writing is just some of the most fun, because it's something unexpected. You're just unaware of it until you evolve into that like viewpoint, and when you're really trying to improve on the craft itself, and then like you said, you get down to like the fundamental matter of like physics, and then you're looking at like atoms and quarks and molecules and bacterium and stuff that the normal human eye can't see in that regard. So I wasn't expecting to go here, but you did go here with the Enneagram types again and some of the behavioral psychology. But let's dive into that, because I'll say from when we met and you've reintroduced me back to that. Now, I've had experience with understanding that stuff, but I haven't really focused on applying it, since when I learned it like maybe 15 years ago with Myers-Briggs and Personality Plus and all those like self-help books that kind of just help you understand people better. But strange things happen at the 1-2 point, in the sense of like a lot of people, when they don't confront things that are like new to them, they don't know how to handle it. And so, but when you get to the point of when you're starting to have that deep self-reflection, you can start to understand other people's irrationalities and why they do the way
100%.
I think that's a problem that I've noticed in people's worlds. Like, let's say two different people come from different cultural backgrounds or two different perspectives of life, but like one person hasn't engaged with the other, but the other one has. And then the person who's like, well, why don't you like the things I like? Or why don't you want to do what I do? And it's just like, I come from something different, but it's okay. So, but I feel like it's hard to understand and take a step back and kind of see it all unless you're more susceptible to the concept of behavioral psychology and things like that. So, dive into Enneagram. How has that helped you develop characters and be a writer, maybe personal, professional life? Like, what was it that led you to that sort of, tool or technique of behavioral psychology and Enneagram?
I bet this is a bit of a coping mechanism as well. I'm a big fan of therapy, but I bet this is a bit of a coping mechanism where I'm the type of person who's really cerebral, and I feel like the better I understand something, the more I can name the monster, the less I'm scared of it, if that makes any sense. And so Enneagram, compared to like a Myers-Briggs or any other sort of like personality assessment, Myers-Briggs, you can change over time. Like in college, I was an INTJ. And now I'm like an INFJ or something like that. And I think it's just like over the course of your life and the experiences that you have, you might just like flex subtly into like into a different realm where I was thinking before, and now I'm feeling instead, because of the circumstances that I've encountered over the last 10 years. But the Enneagram, compared to that, is more of like the base fears that we have. And I love talking about fears, which I think is a bit uncomfortable for other people, but so much of our lives is actually driven by fear. I would love for it to be more driven by like a positive goal, but a lot of it is fear of pain or fear of whatever it is. And so once you start understanding a person's fears, you can kind of understand the stick that is driving them away from something, right? They're more likely running, they could be running to something, which is positive, but there's also the aspect of them running from something. And so I think that the Enneagram is a little bit more deeply rooted. What my core desires are, what my core fears are, have been very consistent for my entire life. I grew up with it. I was like kind of indoctrinated into it from childhood, and I developed a sort of value statement for myself as a child, right? And then I kept on feeding it and kept on believing it growing up. And throughout those formative years, it's still something that sticks with me today. So as an Enneagram type 3, I think that getting love and affirmation is done or given freely if I am a high performing individual. So as you can expect, there's a lot of placements that I'll do on like how I'm doing at work, the kind of praise I'm getting, the way that I'm influencing other people, high visibility things. That is important to me as an Enneagram type 3. But if you turn around to anybody else, someone like an Enneagram type 1 or a type 8 is going to be like, well, an Enneagram type 1 cares most about like what is right, what is wrong, and them being on the side of right. And they don't want to be seen as corrupt or immoral. They think that is what's going to detract love for them, so on and so forth. So understanding a person's core beliefs and core fears helps you understand a little bit more as like, why the fuck did they do what they did? And between the two types, we might commit the same actions. Like a type 1 and a type 3 might be like, I need to work really hard at work. A type 3 is going to say, because I need the accolades to feel loved. A type 1 is going to be like, because it's the right thing to do and I can do it the best. I am the perfectionist in the room, right? So it's like a different fuel, a different reason for doing, that is like, it looked the same, but it's actually from different sources, which is so crazy.
Yeah. Everything you said, I'm 100% on board with. I'm trying to just think through, like, for myself as a self-described, type 8, regarding fears, because that's something that I definitely agree with. I think, my fears in the sense that it's not just, I'm not afraid of failure, but I think it's the sense of like, I can't actualize, like if I don't achieve that actualization, for me, like that is like the worst. Like, it's not that I'm okay with losing, but I'm not okay with not ever having fought in the first place. So it's very interesting. And then something you spoke to about childhood, it's like, I'm a very big proponent of like early childhood education and help, because we're all just kids at heart, even as adults. And it's like, you gotta be careful what you tell kids when they're young, because they're going to carry that belief into adulthood until they start bumping up against life, and that's going to challenge those perceptions and whatnot. So if you instill fear in a kid of a thing that isn't really real, they don't have enough cognitive distinction or life experience to tell like, oh, that's true, but it may only apply to this vertical slice, but not the rest of the pie. Where they might carry that and think it applies to everything. And I'm a big proponent of like, hey, let's provide you with, safeguards, but let's expose you to the fear, but understand how to fight that and combat that fear, versus just like putting it inside of you and like leaving it to fester for years, and whatnot.
Yeah, 100%. You hit it on the head.
Yeah. Now let's get over to, as we close out on this episode, some of the fun questions. I'm saving the best for last. Yeah, I'm saving the best for last. But if you had one writing superpower, which would you choose? Would it be like instantly craft your dialogue? Would it be, you could create the best lifelike characters? What would it be? You can do 10,000 words a day.
I'm gonna say it very carefully, and I think that this is less of a writing superpower, but like a creative superpower. Okay. Less about putting words on paper. But I did think about that. I was like, oh, what if I could just like automatically write 5,000 words a day, right? Imagine how much content you go through, whether it's good or not. I'm gonna actually say the ability to turn on and off lucid dreaming. I'm going to say that really carefully because I do know some people who are really fantastic at lucid dreaming, but they've chosen like a trigger that is really, really common, like looking at the back of your hand, right? And so they're always lucid dreaming at night and they don't really get great sleep. I would say a reliable way to turn on and off lucid dreaming would be fantastic, because lucid dreaming, as I understand it, is like the dreamscape where anything and everything can happen, right? It literally is the bluest sky possible if you want it to be. You can fly, you can summon a dragon. I would have so much fun reworking my novel and just like going through scene by scene, or like exploring this world and really fleshing it out to be like much bigger, much better, in a way that like in my day-to-day waking reality I cannot fathom. But at night I could put my creative brain to work and just like let it be unleashed in this sandbox of infinity. That's what I would do.
Okay, really good answer. I didn't expect the lucid dreaming aspect. That would be a cool superpower. It makes me think of like if you took the movie Limitless with like the pill and a little bit of like Inception. If you had that power, exactly. You could just like ingest it and then, or push a button or something. That's really interesting.
Exactly.
Is there a story, book, or film, or even game that gets you extremely emotional in a good way?
Oh. That's a good question. I've been like, I'm easily moved by media, honestly. Like, I would say like if there was one that I would like to kind of inhabit, it would have to probably be like a Miyazaki film, like a Howl's Moving Castle kind of thing, before it all goes to shit in like the war. Or like Spirited Away, but I don't want to be eaten by No Face kind of thing. But I love the depictions of food there, and I think like back to what you were saying earlier, like a beautiful world with a dark undertone to it. I want to live in the beautiful world with a dark undertone to it. I don't actually want to be in Violent Delights. Like that shit sounds dangerous. Not gonna lie, I don't want to be in The Witcher. I don't want to survive.
Not Attack on Titan. Maybe not even the Dragon Balls.
Not really.
But you
not
can
really.
come back with the Dragon Balls, but yeah, I know 100% like where you're coming from. What is one book, movie, or story world you would like to be transported into? Because so you're saying that, or is it the same? So you said the Miyazaki film is something that gets you emotional, but is it the same movie that you would like to be transported into? Like,
that's a good question. I think the answer is that it depends on the mood. I think I would actually switch it. I would say that a Miyazaki film is one I would like to be transported into and I could probably survive in. A book or a film or a storyline that gets me really emotional in a good way, I think it's tied to your next question, actually, like my favorite story / book ever. Can I answer both of them at the same time?
I was going to say that one for last, but do you want to go? Do you want it now? We can go now. Okay. So we'll jump to
I think it's really good.
Okay. What's your favorite story / book ever?
Okay. It also gets me really emotional. I remember reading this as a child who is like extremely influenced by like the care of animals. I love animals today. But when I was younger, I was also into horseback riding. And so I'm going to say that my favorite book that gets me really emotional is King of the Wind by Marguerite Henry. And King of the Wind is essentially, if you haven't read it before, it is based on a true story, but then this book is fictionalized and romanticized for like a younger audience. But essentially, a stable boy named Agba serves in the royal stables in Morocco, and the Sultan at the time selects 6 of the finest horses to be sent as a gift to the King of France. And Agba accompanies his favorite colt named Sham, which is a red gold stallion born under auspicious signs on a journey. On his heel he has like a auspicious little white mark, but then on his chest he has like a sign of doom and gloom at the same time. And basically throughout the lifetime of this horse, this boy is like unwaveringly loyal to the care of his horse, and the horse loves him just as much. But they are, you know, separated. They're forced into a series of hardships, and all you want is for this pair to be reunited. You like hear and read about unfortunate things like that Sham endures, like years of cruelty, neglect, passing from one uncaring owner to another, all while Abba is like trying to find him. And when they eventually reunite and are brought to England, they find out what his true worth is. And he basically, Sham, the horse, is one of the sires, the foundational sires of modern day thoroughbred racehorses. Like basically the Arabian racehorse. And it was really special to me because when I was growing up, my horseback riding coach owned a pair of Arabian like horses, and they have like very, very distinctive marks, the way that their faces look and the way that they carry their tails. They're just like a very proud breed of horses. And so that really struck me as a child, not only from someone who was like an animal lover to another animal lover, but like unconditional, unwavering loyalty and love, traveling to the ends of the earth for someone, something, some being that you love, and finding a way to reunite. Like I cannot think of like a better story to think of, and to come out on top at the end is just insane.
That's a wonderful answer, and a good, interesting book. I'm gonna have to check that one out. It reminds me of a few things. For one, I know for sure you probably have never seen a Never Ending Story, the movie from the 80s.
I have not.
Yeah, don't.
I have not, but I know about the look.
Yeah, Artex. Yeah, you're not handling that scene. You're not making it through that movie for sure. Even not. I'm still messed up, you know, from that movie as a kid. One of my favorite films of the 80s. Haven't read the book yet, but I've always been fascinated by like the cover of like the 1950s or 40s whenever it came out.
Oh yeah, it's really great artwork too.
Oh yeah, 100%. And then too, the plot of that book sounds like a little bit of like the arc in Avatar: Last Airbender, where like Aang loses Appa and then just goes crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that.
Yeah.
Like, you can. That's what that reminds me of.
Yeah, 100%. And it's such a beautiful story. Highly encourage it.
100%. So if you could choose one book, one movie, or album to keep with you if you were trapped on an island for 1 year, what would you choose and why?
Okay. One book, King of the Wind. Okay. One movie. This is gonna be hard, but I'm gonna choose Ocean's 12. I think of the Ocean's trilogy, I keep on going back to 12. I love how they like have to act as if they're losing the whole time, but you know they're doing something. So love me some Ocean's 12. And then one album, I'm gonna choose a game original soundtrack. I'm gonna choose the Hades original soundtrack by Darren Korb and other artists in there. Just like really, really great instrumentals. I can literally see the storyline as I'm listening to it. It's just such a great illustration and compliment to the game Hades.
That's Supergiant Games that made.
That's right.
Yeah, I have Bastion and the second game they made, which are really fun. I like those two games. Not Hyperdrive or Hyper, I can't remember, but yeah, Bastion, beautiful soundtrack, beautiful gameplay. Yeah, 1000%. Okay, last two questions. Would you adapt Violent Delights for the big screen or some other medium? Why or why not?
Dude, this would be so fucking funny. I'm kind of torn.
Sorry. And then the second question to that, I'll just put them together. Who would you cast as the main characters and or voice actors if it's like an animated, like non-live action?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna play both sides. On one side, why would I not adapt Violent Delights to the big screen or some other medium? Primarily I'm thinking about visual ones, to be honest. I feel like there's something really magical about when a book doesn't describe enough of the character to you that you just put together something in your mind about what they are, right? And I feel like I've had stronger traction with books when I'm able to just know, like I picked an actress or I picked an actor in my head and now that is what they are. Like, and you can't convince me any other way. But the visual is just so strong for me, stronger than anything that you could have stuck between those book folds of like, here's what Althea looks like. I think that is what really gets my immersion for some of these books. So I almost feel like I would say to not adapt it. But at the same time, if I were to adapt it, okay, I'm not going to talk about the tea. I'm not going to talk about it. Okay, I'm not going to talk about the series. Okay, we're going to avoid that. We're going to save it for another time. It's Twilight, by the way. But okay, so that's on the extreme end of like what I don't want it to be anything like. But on the opposite end, I think about the works of like a Senua Saga, a Witcher, the Netflix adaptation, the first season, which I thought was so beautifully done. I think I would lean more towards like The Witcher's season 1 Netflix adaptation as a series for Violent Delights. And I don't really have actors in mind because I'm so in love with the reader coming up with their own visual interpretation of who this person is for them. You know what I mean? I think like there's 1,000 different looks of Althea, but because I wrote this for, you know, for that particular person or audience or reader who's going through this like, why does the world suck? Like, you know, fuck everyone. I wish I could do something about this and take matters back in my own hands. I know they have their own look for Althea, and I think that's where the power is to like keep it. So I don't know if I ever want everyone to be like, that's what Hermione looks like, and that's what Hermione's gonna look like for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? Okay. That's kind of what I mean.
That's valid. And so you're saying you wouldn't adapt it necessarily for a live action, but if you did, it would be more of a series rather than a movie. But would you attempt either a video game or a animated, or is that kind of still the same as live action, or do you consider that differently?
I think that does bring some interesting points to it. I think that what I would enjoy about like the video game aspect is obviously putting yourself into the hot seat. And I intend for Violent Delights, Violent Ends to be like a really visceral experience where you feel like you are in Althea's shoes, right? And there is a lot of like choice that you're making. It is your own hand and your own choice to go and do these things. I think it'd be kind of interesting as a video game adaptation, and almost like maybe more like a Baldur's Gate, where it is a very complicated set of like decision trees, and the way that the outcome can go. And I want it to be visceral and full of agency in a way, but the world also responds in kind. I think that's kind of like the danger of this fantasy world. She's just one piece in this like larger scheme of things. She's not infinite. She's not infinitely powerful either. Just like this one little cog that is trying to operate in her own way. How would that feel?
Okay. I feel like the way you described the game aspect adaptation, it could also potentially work as a board game.
I didn't think about it that way.
I think board games, like, you know, there's tons of I can't even think of the name of it, but it's they weight games on like how complex it is, but it's like the most complex you know, campaign game, and it goes on for like hours. But I feel like there's so many fantasy related board games that you could just craft, because you love D&D, and you mentioned earlier that's some of your inspiration. So I feel like that could be a good adaptation, maybe a Kickstarter for, you know, crowdfunding campaign for, you know, getting the book published and, you know, doing a board game.
It also reminds me of like if we're talking about D&D, like a D&D campaign, because like, you know, Wizards of the Coast and like D&D like story creators will make like a module like, oh, this is all about like
it's like DLC for board games.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like I have a story module and you can go and roll up your characters, but this is basically like the towns that you're gonna hit and like the sort of storyline, the magic system, and whatever else. Like this is the BBEG. Like we basically give that to the dungeon master so that they can have like a cohesive experience for that campaign. And worldwide, people are going through that campaign and able to like, you know, experience it all.
That would be really cool.
Shared game.
That would be really cool. I didn't know they do like custom modules that way, but now that you're thinking like we'll have to talk about that and whatnot. But want to close out here. That is all for our episode with Violent Delights, Violent Ends author Ava Doe. If you haven't already, hit that like button, comment what's been your favorite part of what we discussed so far. We love and appreciate every single one of you and the feedback. And catch us soon. Lorecraft will return.
Thank you.